Oh, 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 oh.
Welcome to Multiple O's, the spin-off podcast for The O Show. The O Show is hosted by Dr. Oriana Fox, the artist with a PhD in self-disclosure. You hopefully know the spiel by now. If you're interested in candid confessions, creativity, nonconformity, and mental health, you've come to the right place. This, my friends, is season 2 of this podcast, which explores the crossover between working on the self and working to change the world.
Hello, welcome back to Multiple O's. I'm your host, Oriana Fox, and I'm an artist with a PhD in self-disclosure. So this is Season 2, Episode 21, where I interview the artist Ann Hirsch, who was a pioneering artist working with the internet back in 2008. She became very well known for her piece Scandalishious, which entailed her becoming a YouTube camwhore with over 2 million views. And then she went on to make an appearance on reality TV. So she's very well versed in expressing her sexuality in mediated contexts. So, in other words, this interview follows on very nicely from the last two, which were with, firstly, Dawn Woolley talking about her book, Consuming the Body, and Erica Scorti talking about her work, both of whom address self-representation in online contexts and social media. So we're following on with that theme to finish off this season, which has been all about re-airing the interviews I did on Instagram Live from Mosal's Gallery about a year ago. Well, actually more than a year ago now. Was it May 2021? So this is the last of that series. But anyway, on with Ann Hirsch. Enjoy. And we're live. Welcome back to the O Show at Mimosa House. I'm your host, Oriana, and I'm really excited to introduce my next guest, who has important lessons to teach us about the internet and being a woman on the internet. We learned from Indrani Ash of the Golden Brown Girls the other day that the first rule of viral content is be sexy. And this is something that my next guest knows very, very well. So please put your hands together for Ann Hirsch.
Hi.
Yay!
I love your backdrop and your outfit and everything.
Thank you. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm okay. So yeah, tell us. Well, those projects I guess I was referring to are quite a long time now. So I want to talk about the breadth of your work, which goes beyond just that early work. But yeah, I think it's something that's always fascinated me about you, just that early Scandalishious piece, and also then your other, work as an adventurer in cyberspace as a horny little feminist. And I'm really interested in your male alter ego,
Jason. Yeah,
Jason. So yeah, I want to hear, what have you learned from your adventures on the internet, going where no horny little feminists have gone before?
I think I learned a lot about myself and like what I am willing to do and what I'm not willing to do, and my own hang-ups and stuff like that. And then I think a lot of the times, well, especially with Scandalicious, I kind of had a rude awakening in a way, because I started that project with a lot of utopian ideal, like feminist ideas that, oh, women, we finally have the power to show ourselves the way we want to, like we can take back representations of ourselves and it's going to open up this whole new world for us. But then kind of what ends up happening is we just end up just because of the nature of the medium and kind of you want to get popular so that you're visible. So then you just end up playing to lowest common denominator. We just end up replicating kind of these same tropes and structures that existed in previous media. So
what are you talking about?
So yeah, I just think over time, like I've just been less and less. I've learned over time the internet isn't like this promising, amazing place that I kind of originally thought it would be.
Yeah, because you were making that work, that Scandalishious work, back when YouTube was brand new. And it was like, ooh, we still had this kind of, we had this potential to have a kind of naive optimism or sense that like this could be utopian, like people generating their own content. We can take control of our own representation finally. But what you found was there were kind of two ways of presenting yourself as a young woman on the internet. And one was to kind of do a sort of like confessional, this is my life, this is who I am. And then there was being sexy and being seductive, and those two never combined. So you were interested in combining them.
Yeah, I was interested in combining them. And I think at the time that was a new way to be a woman online. But I think now it's very commonplace. So it's probably like at the time, I think it was a project that needed to happen, but maybe now wouldn't like make as much sense to do. But at that time I was like, oh, we can, like, women are allowed to be sexual. Like we can be sexual and be ourselves and be sexual creatures and be online. And that's so exciting. But yeah, maybe now it's like just very commonplace.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I guess I'm, yeah. You're a bit younger than me. How old are you? Do you mind my asking?
I'm 35. I was like, how old am I?
Yeah. So you're a good 8 years younger than me. Yeah, because I just feel like I really identified though with what you were doing in a way, because I felt like as a young woman, even though I had fairly liberal parents, and I still felt like it wasn't okay, or there was something taboo about being sexual as a woman. So I felt like that your project kind of spoke to that. But I wonder, it's a question, like whether young women today, anyone watching a young woman, like who can answer this question for us, younger than us? I mean, obviously you're younger than me, so maybe you can say from your perspective, like, so you're saying things have changed. Like, what do you mean? Like, where do you see? Give me an example of like proof that this has changed. Or maybe, I guess I could think of one myself. But anyway, what do you think is kind of proof that things have changed?
Oh, well, just that, it's very, like when I was first starting making Scandalicious, women were barely putting themselves online in video or photographic form. I think a lot of, because what you were saying, we were scared to put ourselves out there. That was very taboo at that time. But now, every young woman has an Instagram with, provocative photos. And that's not seen as
now I'm thinking about it. You're right. the examples are...
It's just not seen as like a weird thing. It's like, yeah, everyone does that. But, back in 2008, no one was doing that. So that has definitely been a big culture shift. I don't think good or bad, just, different problems. Every generation has their own problems that are just different.
Yeah. But it was quite an intense project for you. You got this huge following, millions of followers, and you were very involved in that community of followers, but you were also studying and presenting the work at art school for critiques. And there was a kind of crisis. I mean, it led to a kind of crisis. Could you speak about that, or how that project kind of impacted you personally?
Well, there was two things I was going through. First was I was so involved in playing Scandalicious and being involved in that world and talking to all those people that I got too, I couldn't see when someone was like hoodwinking me or messing with me because I was just so deep in it. And someone did end up kind of fucking with me and blackmailing me in like a way that was really scary, which now is like a very commonplace thing to do. But back then, people didn't really know that much about it. So I was really scared. And so I just had to completely back away from the project at that time. And then also, I was showing the project in school and I was just getting, obliterated by my peers. They didn't understand it. They thought I was being dumb. They thought I was being stupid. Like I literally had one professor say to me, "You're a smart bunny. Like you could do something else." So
I'm sure, but there are precedents to this, like in feminist art.
Of course.
Yeah, of course. Now the names are just going out of my head now.
Yeah, but
Cozy Fanny Tutti.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially just because I was doing it online and not in a specifically art context, for them that made it so maybe I wasn't in the lineage with some of these.
But I guess Cozy Fanny Tutti was a kind of controversial figure for feminists, or certainly probably didn't feel included in that at the time. But her work was operating within pornography, so it's kind of very similar parallel. Like it operated in this other realm that wasn't art, which was, printed pornography. And then she represented it in the gallery.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't. I think even her work wasn't accepted. We're talking.
It wasn't. Yeah.
So.
2008.
Yeah, wouldn't be referenced. So people, I think, just at my school didn't understand what I was doing. So yeah, it was tough going through it, but I'm glad I did. And then I ended up making a performative piece, like a play, basically, that kind of went out that showed my experience, like behind the scenes, and showed the blackmail. And also I had like an online boyfriend that I met that I was very intimate with, and it shows that relationship.
So, I mean, it was difficult. It was challenging, but what were some of the positives from the experience?
The positive.
What keeps you going, revealing these things? You're very open in your work. Like, what keeps that? What drives that?
I think just I'm really into like shame and what we're like ashamed of, and because that has kept me hidden in a way. So I'm just constantly exploring the things that I'm ashamed of in my work as a way to overcome the shame. So for me, Scandalishious was a way to overcome my shame of being a sexual woman, and showing my sexuality, kind of what we were talking about earlier. And it worked. Like I felt after I had done that project, I had a lot more confidence and just felt a lot better about myself as a woman, as an artist. So that was really positive. And I think I just learned so much about the internet. I was attacked by 4chan before people even knew what 4chan was. I was trolled.
Why did they attack you? Why did they? I would think they would like you or something.
It was both. It was this classic 4chan thing where you get posted and half the people love you and are obsessed with you, and the other half, other people fucking hate you, and think you should like die in a fire. So like I had to navigate that years before, that people had to really understood that, that underworld of 4chan and then Reddit. So I learned, just about kind of how the internet functions at an early time, which I think was really beneficial.
And and the internet was like really key element in like some formative experiences, and you explored those in your I don't know screenplay that was then performed at the New Museum. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that. Well.
Yeah, that project was called Playground. And then I also wrote an ebook called 12, and they're both about when I was 12 in online chat rooms on AOL, and I had a boyfriend who was 27. And I'm working on releasing the 12 ebook project to the public because it had been taken down by iTunes since it was censored. And I hadn't gotten it up publicly, but now I'm trying to get that up publicly so people can see it. But re-looking at that project, it's just so much about like grooming and the process of being groomed. And I think that was a term I didn't know when I wrote it, but I mean, I understood that's what it was when I was writing it. But that term wasn't as common. So, I mean, people really see in that piece and in the play as well, kind of like how nuanced and complex and tricky the grooming process is. And how it can feel like love and how it can feel like friendship, and how that is a very tricky space to navigate because you feel like you consented to it. And I think that is what is so messy about grooming. And I really wanted to show that with that piece.
And I think that a lot of people will really identify with it. I mean, or have identified with it and will if you make this more publicly, widely distributed, because I think the kind of emotions you describe are very commonplace, not having an awareness of what's happening and then later feeling ashamed and guilty as if it was your fault when you were just a minor and clearly were not responsible. But
exactly.
Yeah.
I had always felt so like I never told anyone about that experience until I made the artwork because I'd always felt like so ashamed, like I had done something really wrong, or really that I was just like stupid or something like that. Like I was like an idiot, or like gross or like slutty or something like that. So yeah. And I mean, at the same time, it's like I was groomed, but it was also something I was looking for because I wanted to have sexual experiences online, and kind of an older man was able to exploit that desire. That's kind of how I see that project. And all my projects are kind of about like women can have sexuality, but at what cost? So with Scandalishious, it's like women can be sexual, but at the cost of being like trolled and like harassed, which sucks. And then, with 12, with Playground, it was like, okay, a very young teenager can be sexual, but at the cost that she's going to be exploited for that by someone. So, and even with the reality TV project, like I can be, sexual on TV and romantic on TV, but it's at the cost of me being like nationally humiliated for that.
Yeah. Could you say more about the reality TV project?
I mean, I think in terms of like learning that, I mean, if anything, I just learned so much being on reality TV, because it's not until that you are either on a show or work on a show that you really understand the mechanisms that make it work and the ways in which it's manipulated and fake. Because I think a lot of people just think, oh, they just make you say that, or it's made up. But it's like the way producers manipulate contestants and manipulate storylines is so much more complex than that. Because at the end of the day, they have to be able to say, oh, this is real. And if you're a contestant, you're like, yeah, that was real. That all really happened. But really, you're being manipulated in ways like you don't even understand to play out these storylines that producers want to see, which, ultimately enforce certain, I think, negative stereotypes.
Yeah, what's interesting about that project is that, it's clearly like this really strict framework that you want to do an intervention in, but the ways in which you can intervene are so limited. And I feel like that's kind of you could say that almost about all your work.
It's like, as a 12-year-old, like trying to express your sexuality, it's like you're trapped by other people's desires and manipulations of that desire, of your desire. And then within the, Scandalicious is the same thing again. And then, so yeah, it's a really, really tough line to, where am I going with this? It's a really tough line to take. Where was I going with this? How do you do it? Like, what?
I don't know. I like to do the thing.
Oh no, that's what I wanted to ask, which was about the actual intervention that you do on the reality. Yeah, I was just like marveling at how tough it was, and I got sidetracked by that. But I was really going with this was like, the intervention that you actually do. Like, to me, I'm not like I never really watched reality TV, but the actual intervention you do, it just seemed so bizarre. Like, that was the only thing she could do, and what does that mean to do that thing? It's just, could you just explain to those not in the know what it is you actually did in the end on this reality TV show?
Like, I think before that, I had just been playing this very sweet, nice underdog character, which was just the easiest thing for me to do. And then just at the end of my time, I just sang this during a crooning for love challenge. I sang a really dirty, like rap song that I had made up. And it was just really incongruous with like the Annie character that I had been playing. And like, my hope was just to like open up this window for viewers. Like, wait a second, like maybe if she has broken this character, maybe other people, we're not quite seeing them how they are as well. But I mean, I really see my whole time on that show as an investigative performance, which is also how I feel about Scandalicious, that the video, the performance itself was more like social science, like an anthropological investigation.
Right, like participant observation kind of thing.
Yeah, so it's like it is a performance in a way, but not in the classic kind. It's more like me learning. And then like I show my learnings, like my findings, what I found from being in that space. That's more of what I view as being like more of a traditional art piece. So like the works I've made from Scandalicious, from the Vh1 reality show, those are more the art pieces. But yeah, I mean for me, it was mostly like a huge learning experience that really informed how, like, I even watch television now. Like, I can't watch The Bachelor because I just see the mechanisms at play too well, and I can't enjoy the fantasy of it.
That's interesting. But that point made me completely forget what I was going to ask you, which I'm sure is going to come to me. I wanted to connect the thing we were talking about it's it's so commonplace for girls to post sexy pictures of themselves and talk about themselves as like serious people to be respected and taken seriously, and that those two putting those two things together doesn't seem to be a conflict anymore. And your prophecy that everyone was going to start showing their vagina on the internet, or like every woman's vagina would be on the internet. Like, I want to bring those two things together.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely getting closer. I think
we're getting closer and closer to everyone putting their vagina on the internet.
We're getting closer. Like with OnlyFans, I mean, OnlyFans is like a huge step towards that goal, let's say. I mean, I don't know. It's like I really go back and forth because, like, ultimately, how do I even say this? I think right now, sexuality and power and power are so intertwined that it's really hard to separate them. But like in my ideal world that we would live in, I would like to see them untwined, detwined. But unfortunately, that's not the world we're living in. So
in what sense, like how would that work? What do you mean detwined?
I mean,
unwound or something.
Yeah, I mean, right now, so much of women's power that we wield is wrapped up in our sexuality, and then we become slaves to it. And it often becomes the only kind of capital that we have. And that sucks, especially since we live in a terrible capitalistic society. And women don't have as many options to make capital to survive because we're not supported. Like even just being like a mom, like if I was a single mom, like what would I do? Just our government
go back to being a camwhore.
Yeah. I mean, that seems like kind of one of your only options, like, cause you can do it from home. You're going to make better money. So just women and everyone really, we're just in such a precarious position in our societies because our governments don't support us. I mean, you guys have it a bit better in the UK, but in America, it's like really bad. So we often, because of that, our one main source of power is a sexuality. And then we end up having to rely on that. And that just kind of like sucks, that like there's not other ways. And I think in sexual dynamics as well, power, or like any predator, their sexuality is like completely wound up with power over someone. So like, what if we could like unwind that and make it so someone's sexuality is not reliant on them dominating someone else? And I think a lot of people don't want to hear that because a lot of people's sexuality is tied up in that. But I do think that is a problem that leaks out into society and creates other bigger issues. But I like how that could happen. It would take generations and generations to undo all that. But I would be interested to see what that world looked like one day.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so your work is kind of trying to find a way through that dynamic and have some agency within it, even though those power structures are so I
don't even think it does that. I don't think that's possible. I think like my work is really more just like a reflection of our society and trying as best I can to like show as honestly what the problem is. So like with 12 and Playground, it's like I'm not trying to subvert anything. I'm just showing this is what this kind of dynamic looks like and this is how it happens. Yeah.
Okay, I think that's true of that piece. But with the Scandalicious, I think you are trying to have some agency within those roles.
I think I was trying, and I think I failed.
Yeah. And it's the same thing with the reality TV, because it's like you sing this song, and it just struck me as like so bizarre that would be the way to be. It's what's weird about it is that even though it doesn't fit with your character, and it's that disjuncture that makes it them want to censor it, along with like the explicit content of what you say, but like the a really hypersexual woman is within a different context is exactly what people want. So it's like you can't you just can't escape a sort of stereotype or a cliche or the demands of other people's,
or just like the co-option of your performance by bigger media or people or things like that. Cause like, I think both of those Scandalishious and Vh1 performance both just kind of got consumed or like co-opted by something bigger than me. But I am interested in like showing that. Cause I think that's really important, because then that, shows, okay, well, here's a problem. What's like how do we then go forward the next step? And that just might be like my next project instead of the project you're looking at, something like that.
Yeah. So tell us about some more recent,
Well, you wanted to talk about Jason.
Yeah, I want to talk about Jason, but I'm also curious about the project to do with getting married. I think you did a kind of in progress kind of performance to do, or I saw on Facebook an advertisement for some kind of. Anyway, go on and tell me about Jason. And if there's time.
Yeah, I love Jason. So I have this male character. His name is Jason, and he is like kind of an emotional bro that struggles with his masculinity, that really wants to do right and do well, but doesn't exactly know how because of who he is. A cis straight man. And I think a lot of people think Jason, that project is about me making fun of like white straight men, but, or they think Jason is this like horrible figure. But that's not how like I view him at all. Like he's very near and dear to my heart. I know a lot of people like Jason, and I think my goal with Jason is really just to show people, the humanity of someone like Jason, especially through humor. And I did a play at the Stadelic before COVID. In that show, it's basically like the premise of the show is like a Christmas Carol. So Jason at night, he's watching porn. And then when he goes to bed, he is visited by the porn stars of his past, present, and future. And they take him on a journey through his masculinity, his family, his coworkers, and most especially his relationship with women. And, the idea is that eventually he like grows and becomes a better man because of that experience. I think that was definitely the best iteration of like Jason, and the best way to like show him most as a person. So I hope I get to do that play again at some point, but maybe post a lot of things.
Post a lot of things.
Yeah. But yeah, I just think like I spent a lot of time in my art career looking at femininity and what it means to be a woman. And so then I wanted to take some time to look at what it means to be like a man, basically.
And has anyone, what have the responses been to that? Has anyone said, you're not being authentic?
No. I mean, I think the character is really funny. So I think mainly people like laugh and enjoy him. I think, mainly people think it's funny, but I'm just like hoping that people also just like, that's a gateway into people looking at their own selves and see what part of them is Jason. Because I think even in a lot of women, there's a lot of Jason. We have so much internalized misogyny. And how does that come out? Or also just to be able to like understand men more, because I've always like kind of called myself like a man whisperer. I'm just really good at like understanding men. And
how do you know that about yourself, that you understand men?
I think because I sometimes relate more to men than women in certain scenarios. I have a lot of like masculine-ish qualities. And so in that way, I feel like I've related to men more, and I've always been able to like get men to like open up to me and talk to me. And I've had a lot of male friends. I don't know, I just understand their struggle. Like they do, women have a struggle, but men also have a struggle. They do. And I think that has to be, acknowledged. Otherwise it can't be fixed.
Yep. I agree with you on that one. But yeah, so what kind of research did you do preparing for the role of a man, of Jason in particular?
I mainly just based him off of a couple men that I'm close to in my life. So I had been doing the research my whole life.
Yeah, so because you were saying before about like things being your work being a process of research or participant observation. Like, was there an element of that in the Jason project?
For sure. I mean, it's not like I went into like a bar and like watched men, but I know men. I've interacted with them. I don't know. It's just like, it's just empathy. I don't know.
And and what about the marriage, the wedding in progress performance? I don't know if you did a final version of it, or what did that entail? Because I don't live in Los Angeles, so I missed it.
That was like almost like a one-woman variety show in a way. Like that piece was composed of 5 different segments, and each segment was like a different vein of performance art. So like the first section was stand-up comedy, and I did like a comedy bit on like marriage and like husbands. But it was all sourced from comedy bits that I had like found about that. It's all just like really weird stuff, like, my wife, or like marriage is hard, and then there was another section that was just more traditional performance art. Like I'm under a sheet and there's like liquid and there's like people being naked, and then there was another section that was karaoke. But so, yeah, it was just kind of like, I just did it like once. It was just a kind of like an exercise for me, just kind of getting out a lot of my feelings about, what it means to be married or whatever. And also looking at all these different performance art genres, I guess.
It sounds fun.
It was fun.
So what kind of songs were you karaokeing to?
I did karaoke to Freebird by Leonard Skinner. But I sang it as a squirrel. So that was just, yeah. I have like a squirrel voice that I do. So I just sang that song as like a squirrel.
And so first comes marriage, then comes baby. Yes. Mazel tov. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. So how do you feel that becoming a mother has changed you or your work, or how do you, yeah.
It's definitely changed me. I don't know if it will change my work. I mean, change my work in that I don't make any because I'm really busy. But it's definitely changed me a lot. And
you mean you're not having it all?
No. I hate that idea with a passion, but exactly. But yeah, maybe one day I'll, in the next couple of years, get back to some art making. That'd be fun. And we'll just see what it looks like then. I don't know. I do have I wrote a musical about academia that I love and adore. And I think it's so great. It just, that would be one project that at some point I would love to produce somehow.
Do you think it's going to be a smash hit musical?
I think the art world might enjoy it, but okay. Outside of that, I don't, it's not going on Broadway.
No?
I wish. That'd be fun. But yeah, it's basically about power dynamics in terms of gender and race within academia. and it takes place in 2015, kind of pre-Trump, and just about because this piece I did a lot of life research for, first just as a grad student, as an art student. And then I also taught as an adjunct for a couple years. And then also when I came to LA, my first job was I was assistant to the president of a university. And in that position, I really learned and understood how universities work from the top down. And that was a really fascinating experience. And so the musical incorporates a lot of that knowledge.
Such as? Can you tell us a tiny bit more?
Really just where all the money goes. Like so much of it is about money. And because, I mean, when you're part of a university, the whole thing is like, we have no money. Where's the money? And it's just like, how can a university charge so much tuition and yet there's no money? Where does this money go? And so, you know, there's some about that and just about the pressures for the upper administration to constantly be bringing in more money and how that happens and how that pressure trickles down to everyone, to the deans, to the professors. But they also want to be these like bastions of like liberalism and diversity and inclusivity and all these buzzwords. But, you know, ultimately these universities are just capitalist endeavors. So, yeah.
And somehow you've managed to incorporate musical numbers into that.
Oh, you have to. That's the best part.
I mean, I imagine it must be. Because otherwise it sounds really bleak. Like a tragedy
Exactly.
or something.
Exactly. That's why it has to be a musical. It has to be fun.
Yeah. And is it like an original score? Are you a musical person that you can write music and songs and stuff?
No. I was working with a composer. Well, this is interesting. So, okay. When I was writing 12, the ebook, there's a character in that story who was my best online friend at the time, like a fellow young teenage girl. But, you know, we'd only talked online. And then when that piece came out and it was at a show in MIT, the real girl who that is based on went to go see that piece and she read it and she was like, oh my God, you know, this was our friendship. And then she found me and she reached out to me and we met in real life, which was so exciting. And she's a composer. And so then,
oh, nice.
So then I was like, oh, would you want to like, you know, help me with this? So she did a couple songs. But yeah, the project is just indefinitely on hold, really.
I see. Yeah. Well, you will be able to make work again. I know you will, from experience. But yeah, I want to ask something. I don't know if you can answer it, but it's kind of like maybe just a question for further pondering, which is like when we talk about the internet and like obviously things move on so quickly, like I remember like finding out about YouTube on the news, like there's this new website that blah, blah, like I remember that moment. And like, I even have a friend who says, I remember when you emailed me about this thing called YouTube, like it was like, it's associated with me. And now we're on Instagram and it's like, and when you were doing Scandalishious, it was a big deal to be sexy and smart. And now it's like no big deal. So like things move on really, really quickly on the one hand. And on the other hand, you're saying to disentangle this like knot of power and sexuality, you think it's going to take, what was the number you gave it? Like hundreds of years?
I said generations.
Generations. Like, so if we're capable of like this huge rapid change in some places, and then like we think, oh, but not this other thing couldn't possibly change that quickly. Like why? I don't know. It's a conundrum. I don't know if you
because the like big things, the things that can't change, those are like structural to like society, like capitalism. Like capitalism is not going to change anytime soon. But capitalism is the thing that like causes all these little change, like these other changes that you're kind of talking about. Like it's kind of like we have one moment where we find out that we can use these platforms for feminism or for dismantling racism or whatever. And as soon as that happens, it's co-opted by capitalism for like its own purposes. Like, oh, feminism is a thing? Okay, we're going to lean in and girl boss and,
redo the Ghostbusters.
Yeah, it instead becomes like a way to make capitalism like stronger, because what I don't like about mainstream feminism in the last, I don't know, 5-10 years is that it's revolved around women becoming capitalists. And yeah, that's just shitty and sucks. So I think just it seems like there's a lot of change, but really most of it just like supports these larger structural things that are not ideal.
Or like the changes are the ones that go along with that logic, as opposed to the ones that oppose it.
Yeah,
like,
or like
girls posing in sexy pictures is benefiting certain people. I mean, sometimes the girls, but probably more other people.
Yeah, and it's like the moment that we figure out a way to have agency, the system has to consume it, and so then things have to change. Again, we have to find a different way, and then that becomes consumed. So that's also why I think each generation has their own problems, because it's like, okay, we managed to get around this one problem for like 1 second, but then that will ultimately bring on a host of new problems that we have to navigate.
And so in the face of that, what should we do?
I think you just keep going. Just keep going, because I do think we are slowly getting somewhere. It just takes time, like things are better, but there's still problems, and yeah.
Excellent. Well, I could keep going with you, but I know that you have other things to do. And but it's been so wonderful speaking to you. Thank you so much for making the time.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, I hope we can continue this conversation in other places and maybe in person one day. Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Thank you so much, Ann Hirsch.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
That's it for my interview with Ann Hirsch. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Thank you for listening. Thank you to Ann Hirsch and to every one of the guests who appeared on my Instagram live series and who consented to have their interviews re-released as podcast episodes for your listening pleasure. I know it's been mine. And yeah, so that's it for that series of interviews, which means that season 2's end is coming.
Next time on Multiple O's. Next time on Multiple O's.
It'll only be brand new content from here on out, whether it's another episode. I have some people in mind I wanted to ask to be part of this season 2, but my motivation is lagging, so we'll see if that happens. So either you have new content within season 2 to look forward to, continuing on with the themes of self-expression online, or any of the other themes that my other guests raise, or we will be starting a new season sometime in the spring, I'm hoping. And so that's something to look forward to. In the meantime, of course, you're welcome to, take a look through the back catalog. I'm sure there are episodes that you may have missed from season 1 or season 2.
Next time on Multiple O's. Next time on Multiple O's.
Yeah, so until next time, I hope you will accept yourselves unconditionally, your life, and other people, because we're all just fallible human beings.
Oh.